So as many of you have probably already heard by now, a whole bunch of teachers have signed a pledge to keep teaching critical race theory, even if it's against the law. Wow, that's a big one. And the National Education Association has pledged to keep pushing critical race theory into all the school districts that they're involved in, and then try to cover up the tracks. So the NEA decided to have their annual meeting over the weekend, and they voted to push through CRT, which is critical race theory, into all 14,000 school districts, or I think it's more than 14,000, but roughly 14,000 school districts that they are involved with. Coming from the Daily Wire, the NEA also vowed to team up with organizations such as Black Lives Matter at School and the Zinn Education Project, named after the anti-American and factually challenged historian Howard Zinn, to call for an October 14 rally in honor of George Floyd's birthday as a national day of action to teach lessons about structural racism and oppression. Also, under the resolution, NEA President Becky Pringle must be committed to making public statements in the media that support racial honesty in education, including but not limited to critical race theory. The fact that they call this racial honesty in education, this is not racial honesty. It's propaganda. And then they decided to scrub all the information from their annual meeting, from their website. They scrubbed all of it. I guess because we're onto them and we know what they're doing and they don't want to see it, and they don't want us to see it. 3 days after their annual meeting concludes, NEA Today, the nation's largest teachers union, scrubs the agenda items, announcing their nationwide campaign to push CRT from their website. Why are they covering up their support for CRT? If they were just honest people and they're like, hey, this is what we believe about our history and so forth and blah, 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 and we just want to be above board and we want to teach this stuff because we think it's true and accurate. You know, if they were just purely good-willed individuals and organizations, why are they covering their tracks? Why are they hiding? They care more about pushing these agendas and making your children, the children of this country, they're more interested in turning them into, I guess, useful idiots, into activists to break down the system. And why do they want to break down the system? Well, they'll tell you one reason, but what I really believe is they want to break down the system because then that way they can rebuild it to be their socialist utopia, and they'll have all their control and power along with their buddies in other high places. I know that sounds conspiracy theory-like, but that's what things are looking like these days. But as I mentioned earlier, there's also a pledge going around for teachers to take. This comes from the Gateway Pundit. Now the ZEP is circulating a pledge to teach the truth, which identifies left-wing methods of analysis like critical race theory as the truth, and decrees that the signees, all of whom are educators, refuse to be bullied into compliance with the law. So these teachers are actually signing a pledge declaring that they will not follow the law. So parents voted in representatives, and these representatives have said no more CRT in schools, because that's what parents want. And then the teachers go and say, no, we are going to teach it anyways. The pledge reads, to state legislatures, so you fill in the blanks, and then the name of the teacher, and then it says, we, the undersigned educators, refuse to lie to young people about U.S. history and current events, regardless of the law. Ooh, so noble, so virtuous. No. We're not going to follow the law that the representatives that are representing the parents have put in place. The Daily Wire said several states across the country are fighting back against critical race theory by banning educators from teaching it as fact in public school classrooms. Despite the bans, thousands of teachers nationwide have pledged to continue teaching critical race theory. There have been over 5,000 teachers who have signed this pledge. That is a lot of activist teachers who think they are above the law and above the wishes of parents. They think they are better than you. They are arrogant, corrupt, and quite frankly, disgusting. This is one of the teachers who signed the pledge. We also do a disservice to students when we decide that they cannot cope with difficult or challenging concepts. Calling this teaching and indoctrination shows no respect for young people's cognitive and critical abilities, except for the fact that when you're teaching a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old, That is very different than when you're teaching a 20-year-old. A 20-year-old can way different, or at least should. I don't know if most can these days, but most, you're supposed to be able to do this. Weigh the different ideas and worldview systems and the way of looking at things and the different opinions, and then you can assert which ones you believe are true, which ones you don't, and you can sort through it. A 5-year-old, a 12-year-old is not going to be able to do that. No, children don't have the capability as much. I'm not saying kids are stupid, but they don't have the capabilities because they're still developing, they're still learning. Now in high school, they're starting to get there. But if parents aren't wanting their kids to be taught this stuff, you don't teach it. Another teacher commented, "How can we teach future generations to disrupt systems if we are not willing to speak the truth about the systems?" See, there it is again. They are trying to turn your children into little activists, into little revolutionaries, and turn them against you. That's not the words of a teacher. Those are the words of an activist. Not only are these teachers activists, they think they're better. They think they're smarter, like intrinsically smarter, not just more well-educated, smarter. They think they know better. And here's an example of a teacher who is all this that we were talking about.
Unfortunately, that's illegal, but these children's quote-unquote history books are so problematic that I came up with another method. So instead of returning them, since not returning them is illegal, you just cyclically renew them so that they never stay on the shelves.
That is an activist. That is not a teacher. That is an activist. That is a little authoritarian, thinking they know better than everyone else that we can kick books out. Where have I heard burning books? Now granted, it's not burning books because it's illegal, but she would if she could. Where have we heard that before? Oh, I know. Maoist China? Nazi Germany? I'm not saying they're Nazi Germany and not necessarily Mao China, but they're heading there. They certainly are heading there. This kind of behavior leads to that kind of behavior. But anyways, let's continue.
And this is why we need education reform. The book I'm about to show you is actually from 2011. That wasn't that long ago. Within the rubble of pre-K classrooms, I found this social studies book from 2011. When kids learned about the American Revolution, we learned about one black man on the front of the book and everybody else in here is white. When I was tasked to clear out some of the old classrooms and go through all the stuff that was in them, I went through the books so that I could specifically sort them by grade level so that we could figure out which ones were old and tattered to throw away, which ones we should give away to families for free since we're in a Title I school and they don't have resources, or which ones we should donate to the library. I found tons of amazing books, but I found a couple that literally prove the whitewashing of our history in this country. Even though I'm a kindergarten teacher, I am very active in education reform.
You know, you'd think she'd be happy that there was a black person on the front because a black person's getting recognition, but apparently they're never happy about anything and they always want more. So yeah, that's an activist. We are not dealing with normal people. These people have this weird, like, crazy aspect to them. They kind of seem a little unhinged. You know what I mean? They kind of like, they think they're better. They have a superiority complex. They think that everybody else is a rube. And then there's two more from her. Let's look at those.
Microaggressions within children's literature, part 2. This one's from 2010. Yet even though it's 2010, we're still going to call them Indians, and we're still going to insinuate that they should ride a horse and not the... More hard evidence of whitewashing of our history, even in children's literature, in 2010. We are still calling people Indians. We are still holding white people's hands to make them feel better about the colonization of our country by saying that, oh, Indian neighbors celebrated a feast and that's how Thanksgiving started. Oh, it was so unifying and wonderful. No, that's not accurate.
It's not inaccurate to say that Thanksgiving had Indians or Native Americans, which okay, granted, that is more accurate, but it's not insulting to call them Indians, and it's not terrible to say that Indians and the Pilgrims got along, because they actually did. They had one of the longest peace treaties in early American history. Do you really want people like this teaching your children? Because that's who's teaching your kids. That's the kind of person that's signing this pledge. That's the kind of person that's working with these unions. That's the kind of person, and that's who we're dealing with. The school systems are corrupt, they're filled with people like this, they're filled with the teacher unions in the background, and they're filled with the school boards that want to shove this stuff down your throat. They are surrounding your children. Parents, if I can get one message through, please, 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 don't just stand up to the school systems. Pull your kids out. They're turning your children into little revolutionaries. This is the same kind of pattern that happened in Mao, China, and other authoritarian states. This doesn't end well. We should keep trying to save the system, and I'm glad parents are standing up, but it's not worth it. The schools are too far gone, and if they can do it this time, they'll do it again. We need a new system. Why should the government be involved in teaching your kids? They're your kids. But with that, I'm going to have to wrap up this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked what you saw, please leave a comment down below. Let's discuss this a little bit further, and leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe for more. And until next time, keep thinking.